Most college horror stories are just rumors, whispered by seniors to scare freshmen. But what happened on Branton University's campus wasn't a rumor. It wasn't an exaggeration, and it wasn't supernatural. It was something much worse. Because the only thing more terrifying than ghosts is discovering what real people are capable of when no one is watching. When Branton University renovated its East Residence Hall, they advertised it as a fresh start for new students. New lights, new flooring, new paint, new lounge furniture. Everything designed to make the decade-old dorm feel modern again. But they never talked about room 319. None of the brochures mentioned it. The floor maps simply skipped it. And yet, at the start of the fall semester, 3 students were assigned to the room next door. Caleb was one of them, an average freshman majoring in political science, the kind who tried to blend in rather than stand out. He arrived early on move-in day, hauling his suitcases up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was out of service. Or, to be precise, maintenance said the elevator wasn't reaching the 3rd floor. At the time, Caleb laughed it off. By the end of the semester, he would swear the elevator refused to reach the 3rd floor on purpose. His room, 318, sat beside a door with no number plate. A metal rectangle outlined a faded patch on the wood where digits used to be. The frame was older than the others, darker, scratched, and dented at the bottom, as though someone had kicked it repeatedly. Caleb's roommate, Mason, arrived minutes later. Loud, friendly, always talking. He clapped Caleb on the shoulder like they'd been friends for years. "Dude, what's with the freaky door?" he asked immediately, tapping 319's knob. "Locked. Look at that. They assign us the only room next to, what is this, a utility closet?" A girl carrying a stack of boxes laughed as she walked past. "Oh, that? Yeah, they call it the old A/V room. No one's allowed in there." Another student chimed in. "My brother was here 4 years ago. He said that room used to be open. Something happened. They sealed it. But when anyone asked what something meant, no one seemed to know. Or maybe they didn't want to know." That night, after the chaos of move-in day settled, Caleb tried to sleep. But the walls in East Hall were thin, and the building carried sound the way a metal pipe carried water. He heard footsteps along the corridor, distant chatter, the hum of the vending machine. And then something else. A faint, rhythmic tapping, coming from the wall shared with 319. Tap, 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 like a fingernail gently clicking against wood. Caleb sat up. Mason was snoring. The tapping continued for 5 seconds, then stopped. Caleb leaned closer to the wall. Silence. He forced himself to lie down again. Old building, he whispered to himself. Pipes. Temperature changes. Whatever. But a few minutes later, it returned. Tap, tap, tap. And this time, it was distinctly higher up the wall, as though someone were slowly dragging their fingers across it. Caleb didn't sleep until sunrise. Over the next week, the tapping became a pattern. Always between 1:30 a.m. and 2:10 a.m. Never too loud, never alarming enough to complain about, but always present, always intentional. When Caleb asked students on the floor, most shrugged. "You get used to it. Probably air vents." "Dude, you're just new here." Only one student reacted differently, a quiet RA named Brielle. When Caleb mentioned the tapping, she stiffened, then quickly brushed it off. "Some rooms have acoustic issues," she said. "Don't worry about it." But Caleb noticed her eyes flick toward 319 every time she walked by it. It wasn't until week 3 that he realized something was seriously wrong. It happened on a Tuesday during a surprise fire drill. Alarms blared, and students poured into the hallway. Caleb stepped out of his room and noticed something strange. Smoke, thin, gray wisps, drifting from beneath the sealed door of 319. "Hey," Caleb called out. "There's smoke here." But when campus safety arrived and opened the stairwell door, the smoke had already vanished. No smell, no haze, nothing. Even worse, the floor beneath 319's door was dusty, untouched, as if nothing had moved there in months. A guard squinted at it. "Probably just light reflection. Get back in your rooms." Caleb didn't buy it. Neither did Mason. After that day, they both began hearing the tapping. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes accompanied by a faint whispering, too soft to interpret, too long to be imagination. And then came the smell. A sharp, metallic tang like rust mixed with mold, drifting from the cracks around the sealed door. One Thursday night, Caleb decided to document everything. He set up his phone against the wall and pressed record. For 20 minutes, nothing happened until exactly 1:47 a.m. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, the tapping wasn't on the wall. It was on the phone's surface. Caleb jolted awake to the sound, startled. He grabbed the phone. The tapping instantly stopped. The screen recording showed nothing unusual, just his room, dimly lit. But as he scrubbed through the footage, he paused. At the 11-second mark, the video flickered. A frame, just one, of something dark. A figure? A shadow? He wasn't sure. He replayed it 5 times. Each time, the frame was slightly different, as if the video were degrading on its own. He felt a chill. He didn't show Mason that part. At least not yet. The turning point came in the middle of midterms week. Mason was gone for the night, studying with friends. Caleb decided to shower late, hoping it would help him relax. The third-floor bathroom was at the end of the hall, right across from 319. As Caleb walked past the sealed door, he felt cold, unnaturally cold, like stepping from a warm room into a freezer. He stopped. A small sound came from behind the door. Not tapping. Something softer, like breathing. Caleb froze. For the first time, the sound wasn't faint or distant. It was close. Close enough to feel the airflow through the thin gaps of the door. He moved backward slowly, and the breathing followed. Matching his steps, he walked faster. The breathing grew heavier. Panicked, Caleb bolted to the bathroom, locked the door, and leaned against the tiled wall. He waited, trying to calm his heartbeat. After a minute, he heard footsteps, slow, dragging, right outside the bathroom, bare feet on the old linoleum. Then, tap, on the other side of the bathroom door. Tap. Caleb whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Another tap, lower on the door. He stepped away and grabbed his phone, turning on the flashlight. The light flickered. He heard one more sound through the door, soft, desperate, almost pleading. Help. Caleb dropped his phone. Because the voice wasn't a stranger's. It sounded exactly like Mason. When he opened the bathroom door seconds later, the hallway was empty. Silent. Caleb raced back to his room. Mason wasn't there. His bed was neatly made. His backpack gone. The lights off. Everything normal. Caleb tried calling him 5 times, and no answer. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Mason returned, completely normal, asking why Caleb had blown up his phone at 2 a.m. "I was at the library, man," he said. "Ask anyone. I didn't leave until sunrise." Caleb's hands were trembling. Then someone was outside the bathroom pretending to be you. Mason frowned. Pretending? Dude, you need sleep. But when Caleb described the help he heard, Mason's expression changed. He grew quiet. Too quiet. After a long moment, he said, "People told me about this floor before I moved in. They said someone went missing from here years ago. A student. They found his room empty one morning. Door open. Lights on. No signs of struggle." Caleb stared. "What does that have to do with our floor?" It was room 319. The more they asked around, the stranger the stories became. A janitor claimed 319 used to be a single room, occupied by a student named Harris Ventnor. He kept to himself, rarely spoke, and often stayed up late editing audio projects. One night, students next door heard a loud crash. When security entered the room the next morning, Harris was gone. No note. No signs of escape. Only deep scratches on the ceiling. Not the walls, the ceiling. And an audio recorder still running. Playing nothing but breathing. Campus rumored that the university sealed the room because students kept complaining about late-night sounds. Breathing. Tapping. Low voices. Some said maintenance refused to work on the 3rd floor after dark. Others claimed a freshman saw a hand slide out from beneath 319's door during a power outage. But no one had proof. Until now. The final incident happened during a storm. A power surge knocked out half of East Hall. Mason was visiting friends, leaving Caleb alone in the dim, emergency-lit corridor. He sat at his desk, struggling to ignore the tapping from 319. But tonight it was different. Faster. More chaotic. as if someone were pounding on the walls from the inside. Suddenly, his lights flickered and went out completely. The hallway outside fell silent. Then, slowly, the tapping began again. Only this time, it came from inside his own room. Caleb grabbed his flashlight and shined it on the wall. The tapping grew louder, then stopped. He held his breath. A faint crack appeared in the paint, like something was pressing through the plaster from the other side. Caleb backed up so fast he fell over his chair. The crack widened. Something was pushing, pushing. A pale fingertip broke through the paint. Just one, pressing against the air. Caleb screamed and scrambled toward the door. But before he could escape, the tapping stopped, and a voice whispered through the wall. Not again. The finger retreated. The wall sealed. The crack vanished, and the corridor lights snapped on. Campus security and administration dismissed Caleb's report, citing stress and midterm anxiety. The wall showed no damage. His recorded videos had corrupted. No one believed him, except Brielle, the RA, who quietly told him, "You aren't the first to see something. You won't be the last. That room should have never been sealed. It's not trapping something inside." She looked at 319 with fear. It's trapping something out. Caleb moved out of East Hall before spring semester. He refused to walk past the third floor again. But sometimes when he returned to campus for club meetings, he avoided the building altogether. Because whenever he got too close, he could swear he heard faint tapping, coming from every wall around him, as though the thing behind 319's door wasn't stuck there at all, just waiting for someone to listen again. Brandon University's North Quad had a different reputation from the East Residence Hall, where East was noisy and chaotic, North was quiet, academic, and filled mostly with students on scholarships who preferred stability over parties. At least, that's what everyone believed. But there was one part of North Quad no one liked walking through. The courtyard behind the Humanities building, the one lined with tall, dying trees and a single cracked stone bench. For years, students claimed that someone sat there at night. A girl, always alone, always silent, always staring. Most chalked it up to rumors, until Leo transferred to Brandon University during the spring semester. Because Leo didn't believe in rumors. He believed in facts. And after what he experienced that semester, he wished he never asked for any. Leo arrived on January 14th, a week before classes began, when the campus looked almost abandoned. Snow blanketed the lawns and coated the sidewalks. The HVAC system in North Quad hummed loudly, pushing stale hot air through old vents. His dorm, Haven Hall, was clean but outdated. Yellowed ceiling tiles, wooden closets that creaked, windows that rattled when the wind hit them. It didn't bother him. Nothing ever really did. Leo prided himself on staying calm, logical, grounded. That lasted until his first night on campus. He was walking back from the dining hall when he saw her. A girl sitting on the cracked stone bench in the courtyard. Long hair, thin frame, wearing a pale blue hoodie. Not moving, not shivering, just staring at the Humanities building like she was waiting for someone to open a door that had been locked for years. Leo slowed. It was below freezing. Her breath should have fogged in the air. But there was nothing. He walked faster, telling himself, she's just a student. Nothing weird. But when he reached the steps to Haven Hall, something made him turn back. The bench was empty. The courtyard was completely still. The girl had vanished. No footsteps. No sound. Only the wind. The next day, Leo asked around casually. "Hey, does someone usually sit in that courtyard at night?" He asked a group of sophomores in the lounge. They paused mid-conversation. One girl's face went pale. "Where?" she asked. "The stone bench." She quietly whispered to the others, and one of them shook his head vigorously. "Don't talk about that." Another said, "Drop it. For real." The room grew tense. Leo forced a laugh. "Guys, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I saw a student there. Thin girl, blue hoodie." The girl who had gone pale held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop." Her voice trembled. Leo frowned. "What's going on?" "No one is supposed to sit on that bench," she said. "Not anymore." He waited for someone to elaborate, but the group acted like the topic physically hurt them. One by one, they left the room. All except the pale girl. After a moment, she quietly asked, "Did she look wet?" Leo blinked. "What?" "Her hair. Clothes. Face. Did she look like she'd been caught in rain? There was no rain, Leo said. That wasn't my question. He hesitated. Yes, actually. Her hair did look damp. The girl closed her eyes. Oh God, she whispered. Someone must have mentioned her recently. That's how it starts. Before Leo could ask what she meant, she stood, gathered her things, and left without another word. Leo spent the rest of the night trying not to think about the girl on the bench. It didn't help, because at 2:14 a.m., he woke to a soft tapping on his window. Not knocking, not scraping, just a slow, rhythmic tap. He sat up. The window overlooked the courtyard and the stone bench. His breath caught in his throat. The girl was sitting there again, facing his window. Her hair hung over her face like wet strands of seaweed. Her hoodie dripped onto the stone, and she wasn't just staring at the humanities building anymore. She was staring directly at him. The next morning, Leo confronted the one person who might talk, his resident advisor, Mrs. Ellery, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an anxious energy. When he mentioned the girl on the bench, Mrs. Ellery's smile disappeared instantly. "Where did you see her?" she asked sharply. "Behind humanities." "And what time was this?" "Around 10 p.m. Mrs. Ellery swallowed hard. "Did she say anything?" "No, she didn't move." "Did she follow you?" Leo stared. "Excuse me?" Mrs. Ellery closed her office door and sat. "What exactly did you see?" Leo told her. Every detail. The wet hair, the fixed stare, the tapping on his window. She didn't interrupt once. When he finished, she leaned back, looking exhausted. "What's her name?" he asked. Mrs. Ellery shook her head. "We don't say her name on campus. That sounds like superstition." "It's safety," she said quietly. Leo couldn't help scoffing. "A ghost story?" Mrs. Ellery met his eyes. "Leo, she isn't a ghost." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "She's a student." Leo frowned. "A student who just sits outside in winter at night? A student who drowned. Right there, behind the building." Leo stared. "How can she be?" "She drowned," Mrs. Ellery said firmly. "And she didn't leave campus after it." Silence. Leo let out a breath. "Okay, that makes no sense. If she drowned, she never left." Leo rubbed his forehead. "So what?" "This is an urban legend to scare newcomers." Mrs. Ellery stood. "The worst part of this campus isn't ghosts, Leo." She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "It's the things that look alive long after they shouldn't." Leo tried focusing on his classes, but the courtyard felt wrong every time he passed it. Students avoided it like it radiated cold. No one ate lunch there. No one studied there. Even squirrels avoided the trees around the bench. That alone would have unsettled Leo. But what terrified him was that he kept seeing the girl, always at a distance, on the edge of the path, behind a bus stop pole, in the corner of the cafeteria's glass reflection. Never close, never approaching, but always watching, always wet. Every time he blinked, she seemed slightly closer. One Friday night, Leo walked back from a late study session. A thick fog rolled in across campus, turning the lampposts into hazy orbs of dim yellow. He tried cutting through the courtyard to get home faster. That was a mistake. Halfway across, he heard soft, wet footsteps behind him. Squish, squish, like someone walking in soaked shoes. Leo's pace quickened. The footsteps matched him. Squish, squish, squish. He forced himself not to turn around. He reached the door to Haven Hall and grabbed the handle. But it didn't budge. Locked. After-hours entry only through the main lobby. Leo cursed under his breath. The footsteps stopped. The fog shifted behind him. He turned and saw her, 5 meters away, closer than ever. Her hoodie clung to her frame like a second skin, dripping steadily onto the concrete. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle. Her fingers were pale and shriveled, like she had been underwater for hours. Her lips were slightly parted, just enough for cold fog to drift out of her mouth. Leo pounded on the door. "Let me in." The girl took one slow step toward him, then another, then another. Her feet made no sound now, only dripping. Drip, drip, drip. Suddenly, the door opened. A student exiting stopped and stepped aside. "Are you okay, man?" Leo shoved inside without answering. We glanced back. The courtyard was empty. The fog swallowed everything. Leo wasn't sleeping. He wasn't eating well. Every night, he heard tapping on his window, sometimes faint, sometimes sharp, sometimes accompanied by a soft, gurgled sound like someone trying to breathe underwater. He couldn't keep living like that, so he decided to find answers. He headed to the Humanities Archives, a restricted section seldom used, claiming he needed research material. The grad student on duty didn't care enough to question him. The back room of the archives smelled of dust and old paper. Leo searched through campus incident reports, newspaper articles, and student records from the past 8 years. Nothing. No drowning victim. No missing student. Nothing matching the girl's appearance. Then he found a file misfiled between 2 unrelated folders. The edges were water damaged. The name on the tab was torn off. Inside, a disciplinary report, a missing student form, a campus safety memo, a photo. Leo stared at the photo. It was her. Same pale blue hoodie. Same long hair. Smiling in the picture. Alive. The date on the form showed she'd disappeared 6 years ago. But there was something stranger. Cause of disappearance. Unknown. Last seen. Sitting on the courtyard bench behind Humanities, 11:42 p.m., student reported seeing her walking into the fog. Leo's blood ran cold. He flipped the memo. One line was highlighted. Do not interact with her. Do not speak to her. And under no circumstances should you acknowledge her if she knocks. Leo's breath caught. Knocks. She had tapped on his window every night. The next night, Leo tried to sleep early. But at 2:12 a.m., like clockwork, the tapping started. Tap, tap, tap. He covered his ears. Tap, tap, tap. He buried his head under his pillow. Tap, tap, T. Silence. Leo exhaled shakily. Then, a voice. Soft, wet, broken. Leo. He froze. Let me in. He squeezed his eyes shut. Please. The voice trembled. Let me inside. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Don't ignore me. The voice grew sharper. Desperate. Don't make me come in on my own. Leo bolted upright. His window was fogging from the outside. Too pale, waterlogged handprints pressed against the glass. The lights flickered. The room temperature dropped. The tapping resumed again, but louder. Faster. Wild. Tap, 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 tap. Leo grabbed his backpack, shoved his laptop and books inside, and ran out of his room. He sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding, lungs burning. He didn't stop running until he reached the main lobby. Mrs. Ellery was there. She looked relieved and terrified. You saw her again, she said. Leo nodded, shaking. Mrs. Ellery locked the lobby doors and pulled him into her office. What does she want from me? He asked. You noticed her, she whispered. Most students walk past without looking. But you saw her, and she saw you see her. Leo swallowed. Why does that matter? Mrs. Ellery hesitated, then said, because she's trying to come back. Mrs. Ellery finally told him everything. 6 years ago, the girl, Hannah, was a freshman on scholarship, struggling with classes, overwhelmed, alone. One night, after a bad phone call with her parents, she walked behind Humanities and sat on the bench. It began to rain heavily. Students saw her crying, and then she vanished. Not disappeared, not walked off, vanished. The next morning, only her hoodie was found, soaked and clinging to the stone. Her body was never recovered. Rumors spread that she drowned in the storm drains beneath Humanities. Others believed she took her life. But some students began seeing her, wet, shivering, silent, sitting on the same bench night after night. Not a ghost, not a hallucination, something in between, something stuck. She mimics life, Mrs. Ellery whispered, like a record that never stops replaying. A cold realization crept into Leo's chest. And when someone notices her, Mrs. Ellery's eyes filled with fear. She tries to replace them. Leo's breath hitched. Replace? Hannah wants to come back. She needs someone to take her place. Someone who sees her. Someone she can follow. Leo shook his head. No, that's impossible. That's not real. Tell that to the students who vanished after seeing her. Mrs. Ellery handed him a list, 6 names. All reported missing. All last seen in North Quad. All had told someone they saw Hannah before disappearing. Leo felt sick. What happens if she reaches me? Mrs. Ellery whispered, "You won't leave campus." Leo made a plan. He'd pack his things and leave campus first thing in the morning. He wouldn't wait for classes, wouldn't wait for sunlight. He'd get in an Uber and go home. But Hannah didn't wait for morning. At 4:03 a.m., Leo woke to his door slowly creaking open. He held his breath. Something stepped inside. Wet footprints formed on the carpet. And then, a quiet, broken whisper. Leo. He didn't turn. He didn't move. He stared at the wall, paralyzed. "Why did you run?" Her voice was closer. "Why won't you look at me?" Colder air filled the room. Her breath brushed the back of his neck. Slow, uneven, like someone drowning between words. "You saw me." Leo squeezed his eyes shut. "So now you have to stay." Her hand touched his shoulder. Ice cold, fingers waterlogged and soft. He couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. Her voice slipped into his ear. "If you won't let me in." Her grip tightened. "I'll make you come out." Suddenly the lights snapped on. Footsteps rushed in. Hands grabbed Leo and dragged him away from the bed. Mrs. Ellery stood over him, shouting his name. Leo gasped for air, trembling violently. His room was empty. No wet footprints. No girl. No sign of Hannah. But his shoulder had a wet, pale blue handprint on it. Campus security escorted Leo off campus before sunrise. He didn't argue. He didn't even look back. His parents picked him up and took him home. They said he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't correct them. That night, hundreds of miles away, Leo sat awake in his childhood bedroom. Safe. Warm. Not alone. He exhaled, finally relaxing. Until, tap, 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 on his window. Leo froze. Slowly, terrified, he turned his head. Two pale handprints pressed against the glass, and a wet forehead leaned slowly into view. Her voice seeped through the window, soft and broken. "You left me behind." Tap, tap, tap. "But I found you." The campus library of Westbridge College had always been known for its age. Built in 1894, renovated in pieces over the decades, it felt like a place carrying memories of generations of students who had passed through its narrow corridors. But no one remembered the building the way its janitorial staff did. Those who heard footsteps after midnight, saw lights flickering on floors that were supposed to be locked, and occasionally received complaint from students about noises coming from the ceiling, though the library technically had no attic. Most students used the library during daylight hours, when sunlight filtered through tall windows and the silence was peaceful rather than oppressive. But for three friends, Sarah, Mina, and Joel, the library was a nightly refuge. Exams were 2 weeks away, and the three had fallen into a routine of studying together until the lights were switched off at 2 a.m. They always left before the staff locked the doors, never pushing their luck. But on a quiet Thursday night, everything shifted. It began with Joel noticing something strange about the elevator panel. While the library officially had 3 floors, the ground floor, the reading floor, and the archives, he saw a faint outline of a button beneath the third. A square smudge, like someone had tried to remove a sticker or scrape off paint, leaving behind a nearly invisible shape of where a button should have been. "Hey," he whispered to Sarah and Mina, pointing. "Did you ever notice this?" Mina leaned closer, squinting. "It looks like something used to be here." Sarah shrugged. "Probably a mistake. They renovated last year, remember? Maybe they removed something." But Joel pressed the blank smudge anyway, laughing quietly at his own curiosity. And the elevator responded. The mechanical hum beneath their feet changed. A soft ding echoed inside the small metal box. The indicator screen above, dusty and dim from age, flickered and showed something impossible. 4. The elevator had never had a 4th floor. There wasn't supposed to be one, yet the button lit up, faint but unmistakable. The door slid shut before any of them could react. "Is this a glitch?" Mina whispered, backing into the corner. Sarah tried pressing the open door button, but nothing happened. Joel swallowed hard. Maybe this is part of the renovation. Maybe they added something new. But none of them believed that. They watched the numbers change, 1, 2, 3, and then the elevator kept rising. Past where it should have stopped. Past what the building structure could possibly allow. Each second felt heavier, the air inside tightening as if pressurized. Then the elevator jerked violently. Not enough to throw them off balance, but enough to make all three gasp. The lights flickered, buzzed, and steadied. The door opened to a hallway drenched in fluorescent light. Too bright, too cold, too quiet. They stepped out cautiously. The hallway stretched far longer than any floor in a library. The walls were painted a pale gray, sterile, and empty. There were no posters, no room numbers, no furniture. Just a long, straight corridor with ceiling lights that buzzed faintly, forming a repeating pattern that made each section look identical to the last. Joel whispered, "Guys, this doesn't feel like part of the library." Mina rubbed her arms. "It feels like a hospital." Sarah stepped forward slowly, looking around with furrowed brows. Why would the library have an empty floor? None of them could answer. After a few moments of standing in confused silence, Sarah pulled out her phone to check for a signal. Nothing. No Wi-Fi. No network bars. Not even emergency calls. Mina's phone showed the same. Joel's battery had died half an hour earlier. "Let's go back," Mina said quickly. "This is creeping me out." They returned to the elevator, but the panel inside looked different now. The numbers were gone. Only a single button remained. A downward arrow, but the button was cracked, bent inward as though smashed by someone trying to escape. Joel pressed it anyway. Nothing happened. He pressed harder. Still nothing. Sarah took a deep breath, her voice steady but low. "Okay, we won't panic. Buildings have maintenance floors. Service levels. Maybe we're just on one of those." "Service floors don't trap you," Mina said quietly. Joel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Then we find another way down." They walked into the hallway. At first, it looked impossibly uniform. No doors, no intersections, but after around 50 steps, they found the first door. A metal one, painted the same gray as the walls. No handle, no keyhole, just a small glass window at eye level, fogged from the inside. Joel pressed his face close, trying to see. "Can't make out anything." Sarah knocked. The sound echoed down the hallway. Something moved on the other side. Mina stepped back instantly. "You heard that, right?" Joel nodded. "Could be pipes. Old buildings make noise." But Sarah felt her stomach tense. That wasn't pipes. They moved on. After several minutes, another door appeared, this one slightly ajar. The moment they saw the gap, all three froze. "Nope," Mina whispered. "No way I'm going near that." But Joel, being the one who hated unanswered questions, reached out and gently pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, too loudly, as if the noise didn't match the small movement. Inside was a room filled with desks. Old wooden desks arranged in perfect rows, facing a chalkboard. It looked like a classroom, but a classroom frozen in time. The chalkboard was covered in smeared writing, as if someone had erased it violently. Dust coated every surface. The room smelled stale, untouched for decades. Why would there be a classroom up here? Sarah whispered. Joel walked between the desks, scanning the room. These desks looked like they were from the 60s. Mina stayed near the door, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "Can we please leave? Everything about this place is wrong." "Just 1 second," Joel said, examining the chalkboard. He wiped a corner with his sleeve, revealing faint writing beneath the smudges. It wasn't coherent, just fragmented sentences, overlapping lines, numbers repeating in strange sequences. Sarah's voice was barely audible. "It looks like someone wrote over something else." Joel stepped closer, and that's when he noticed a handwritten note tucked beneath an eraser tray. He unfolded it. The paper was yellowed, edges cracked, but the writing was clear. "If you're reading this, leave. Don't explore. Don't listen to them. Don't answer the ones behind the doors. The 4th floor isn't supposed to exist." Joel froze. Sarah's breath hitched. "What do they mean, them?" Before he could answer, a sharp, deliberate knock echoed from the door they'd entered through. Not from outside the room, from the hallway side, from someone, or something, waiting right behind it. Mina gasped and stumbled backward, covering her mouth. Joel gestured for silence. The knock came again. Slow, rhythmic, as though whatever was outside knew they were listening. Sarah whispered, barely audible, "Who would be up here?" The knock turned into scratching. Slow, steady scraping along the metal surface. like fingernails dragging across it. Long strokes. Too slow. Too intentional to be accidental. Mina whimpered, "No, no, no. Please open something else, another door, anything." Joel grabbed her hand. She'll wait. The scratching stopped. Silence. A silence so complete it felt unnatural. Then the doorknob jiggled. Except the door had no handle. Something was trying to open a door that had no mechanism to open from the outside. Sarah grabbed both Mina and Joel, pulling them back toward the opposite corner of the room. "We're leaving through another exit," she whispered. "Now!" Joel nodded, grabbing the paper and stuffing it into his pocket. They moved toward the far wall, but there was no second door. No emergency exit. Only blank gray walls. "Wait," Mina said suddenly. "I smell something." It faintly smelled like smoke. Joel looked around. The smell grew stronger with each breath. They scanned the floor, the ceiling, the desks. Nothing was burning. Yet the smell was undeniably present. Sarah's eyes widened. "This place is playing tricks on us. We need to get out." Suddenly the lights overhead flickered violently. The buzzing grew louder, turning into a high-pitched ringing. The chalk on the board vibrated, rolling slightly. Dust lifted from the desks and hovered in the air. Mina covered her ears. "Make it stop." Joel pushed them toward the hallway door despite the terror that something waited behind it. He pulled it open. The hallway was empty. Quiet. Still. "Move," Sarah urged. They stepped out quickly and closed the classroom door behind them. The moment it shut, the hallway lights buzzed loudly, then dimmed one by one, starting from the far end and traveling rapidly toward them. It looked like darkness was sprinting their way. "Run!" Joel shouted. They tore down the hallway, footsteps pounding against the linoleum. The lights above flickered, struggling to stay lit. The buzzing grew louder. Louder. Too loud. Then the darkness hit them. The floor beneath them felt like it shifted, not physically, but as though they were suddenly someplace else entirely. The hallway stretched endlessly. The ceiling lights above vanished. The walls grew darker. The smell of smoke intensified. Sarah stopped abruptly, gasping. This isn't the same hallway." Joel spun around. The elevator was gone. The classroom door was gone. Even the walls had changed, now lined with faded doors every few steps, each with a fogged glass window. "This floor is changing," Mina whispered, trembling. "It's moving, rearranging like it's alive." A faint knock echoed behind one of the doors. Then another knock behind a second. Then a third. Dozens of knocks, in different rhythms, different strengths, as if every door had someone behind it, someone waiting to be let out. Joel grabbed both girls and walked quickly, not running now, but trying to stay quiet. The knocking followed them, moving along the hallway behind them, door by door. Sarah finally saw a corner ahead. A turn. Something new. "Go," she whispered. They ran toward it, then stopped dead in their tracks. At the corner, a figure stood motionless, facing the wall. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like a student's uniform from decades ago. Its head turned slowly, not the body, just the head, rotating impossibly far until its blank, pale face stared directly at them. No eyes, no mouth, nothing, just smooth skin stretched tight like wax. It lifted one hand and pointed behind them. They heard the doors clicking open all at once. Joel didn't wait. "Run!" They sprinted back down the hallway, but it stretched farther now. The end kept moving. The lights above exploded one by one, plunging the hall into strobe-like darkness. Every flicker revealed shapes, pale figures stepping out of the once-closed doors, all facing the three students. Mina screamed without realizing she did. Joel grabbed her hand tighter, dragging her forward. "Don't stop. Don't look back." Sarah saw something ahead, a flashing elevator light. It shimmered like a mirage, then steadied. "There!" she cried. They sprinted toward it, ignoring the footsteps closing in behind them. Soft, quick, multiplying. The elevator doors were half open, frozen. Joel shoved them apart with all his strength. Sarah and Mina squeezed inside. Joel followed and slammed the inner panel. "Go down! Go down!" Mina screamed. There was no panel, no buttons, just a single line of text burned into the metal. You weren't supposed to find this place. The figures stepped closer outside, reaching, whispering, growing clearer with every flicker of the dying lights. Joel punched the wall in panic, and the elevator plummeted. All three screamed as the floor dropped from under them. Wind roared upward. The lights above blurred. The elevator felt like it was falling for far too long, longer than any building's height. Then darkness. A thud. Silence. Sarah opened her eyes first. They were in the lobby. The real lobby. Students walked by normally. The librarian sat at the desk checking books. Everything looked exactly as it should. Mina burst into tears. Joel slumped against the elevator wall, breathing hard. A nearby student asked casually, "Are you guys okay?" None of them answered. They rushed out of the library into the cool night air, refusing to look back. Later, when Joel checked his pocket, the old paper he'd taken from the classroom was gone. But written on his palm, in smeared gray dust, were the same words. "Don't answer the ones behind the doors." The boys' dormitory at Westbridge College was known for being old, loud, and perpetually out of hot water. Students joked that it had more personality than half the people living inside it, with pipes that groaned at night and walls that echoed footsteps long after everyone had gone to bed. But among all the rooms scattered across its 3 floors, room 211 had a reputation that no one liked to talk about openly. People whispered that the college never assigned it willingly. It was always given last, only when every other room had been taken, and whoever ended up living in 211 never stayed long. They switched dorms, they moved off campus, or they just dropped out, quietly, suddenly, without explanation. No one really knew why. The college didn't keep official records of student rumors, and the administration insisted the room was perfectly normal. But a lingering air of caution hung around it, as if the walls themselves knew more than the people living inside. Ethan, a second-year engineering student, didn't care about campus myths. He transferred mid-semester after a family emergency pulled him out earlier in the year, and by the time he returned to campus, no rooms were left, except one. Room 211. The housing representative had spoken too quickly, almost nervously, as if trying to finish the process without explaining too much. Ethan noticed the look, but exhaustion outweighed curiosity. "Fine," he said. "I'll take it." The day he moved in, he realized something fell off before he even opened the door. The hallway was unusually quiet. Other rooms played music, laughter echoed from upstairs, and someone was cooking instant noodles down the hall. But right in front of room 211, everything felt muted, as if the sound died before reaching its door. The door itself was strange, not broken, not old, just wrong. Too new. A perfectly polished wooden surface without a single scratch, while every other door on the floor had dents, chipped paint, or worn-out numbers. Room 211's numbers looked like they'd been replaced recently, but the style didn't match the rest of the building. They were slightly crooked, too shiny, and the screws holding them in place were clean, bright silver. Ethan unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was immaculate. Much cleaner than any dorm room had a right to be. The desk surfaces gleamed, the floor looked freshly mopped, and the window was spotless. Even the bed was made neatly, with crisp sheets that smelled faintly of disinfectant. "Nice," Ethan muttered. But the more he looked, the more the neatness felt unnatural, as if someone prepared the room specifically for him. He shrugged it off and started unpacking. As he arranged his books on the shelf, he noticed something strange. The room had 2 desks and 2 beds, but only one set of belongings. His. He checked the housing paper again. It listed him as the sole occupant. "Guess I get the room to myself," he said with a small laugh. But it didn't feel like he was alone. Something about the air carried an odd heaviness. Attention, not hostile but aware, as if the room itself was paying attention. He brushed the thought off and spent the rest of the evening getting settled. When he finally laid down around 1 a.m., he felt strangely drained, but sleep came quickly. He woke up at 3:11 a.m. to someone breathing in the room. Not deeply, not sleepily, just breathing. Slow, steady, not his own. Ethan's heart pounded as he sat up. The second bed, untouched earlier, now had a visible indentation, as if someone had lay there only moments ago. He froze. "Is someone in here?" he whispered, though part of him didn't want an answer. No response, but the air felt colder. He slowly climbed out of bed and flicked on the lights. Nothing in the room moved. No shadows shifted. No one appeared. But the indentation remained on the second bed. Old mattress. Ethan muttered to calm himself, though the logic felt forced. He checked the lock. It was still deadbolt from the inside. No one could have come in. Still uneasy, he turned off the light and returned to bed. The rest of the night remained silent. The next morning, Ethan tried convincing himself it was just exhaustion. New room, new semester, stress. Maybe his mind created noise from nothing. But when he left for class and returned that afternoon, the first thing he noticed was the second bed. It was made perfectly, as if someone had used it again and then cleaned up. Ethan stared at it. Okay, seriously? He double-checked everything. Closet, under the bed, bathroom, even knocked on the walls to see if there were holes or cracks. Nothing. No one. No explanation. He told himself he was imagining things and went about his day. But that night, the breathing returned. This time louder. He sat up again. The sound came from the corner of the room, near the empty desk. A slow inhale. A slow exhale. Rhythmic. As if someone stood there silently watching him. He grabbed his phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam revealed an empty corner. But the breathing didn't stop. It continued until Ethan grabbed his jacket and slept in the lounge downstairs. By the next morning, he was exhausted, irritated, and determined to talk to the guy who lived across from him, Ryan, a senior who always seemed to know everything about everyone. Ethan knocked on Ryan's door. Ryan opened it halfway, his expression stiffening when he saw who it was. "You're in 211, right?" Ethan frowned. "Yeah. Why?" Ryan sighed. "Has anything weird happened?" Ethan hesitated. "Define weird." Ryan rubbed his face. "Man, I knew they'd stick someone else in there eventually. Look, how much did they tell you about that room?" "Nothing," Ethan admitted. "Didn't think so." Ryan stepped into the hallway and lowered his voice. "No one stays in that room more than a few weeks." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "Why?" "Because it doesn't like being empty." Ethan blinked. You mean the room?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Students always say the same thing. Breathing at night. Someone sitting on the bed. The room stays clean even when they don't clean it. Stuff rearranging itself. The longer you stay, the more it tries to fill the empty space." "That's ridiculous," Ethan said, though doubt flickered in his tone. "Believe whatever you want," Ryan said. "But keep the second bed messy. Don't leave it empty." Ethan half laughed. "Seriously?" Ryan's expression remained grim. "If the room thinks you're alone, it tries to give you company. And trust me, you don't want the company it chooses." Ethan shoved the conversation aside, chalking it up to superstition. Still, that night, he threw random clothes across the second bed just to ease his nerves. He slept better. No breathing. No movement. But the next night, when he returned from a late study session, the second bed was spotless again. Clothes folded neatly at the foot. Pillows arranged perfectly. Someone had cleaned it. Someone who didn't want it messy. Ethan's skin prickled. Okay, this is not normal. He grabbed his phone and recorded the room in a slow pan, checking under beds, inside drawers, behind curtains. Nothing. No one. He set his phone up on a shelf to record overnight. When he woke up the next morning, the room looked normal. Until he checked the video. At 2:47 a.m., the blanket on the second bed moved smoothly, as if being pulled by invisible hands. The pillow depressed slowly. The mattress sank an inch, then another. Something sat down. Ethan watched frozen. His own sleeping form lay motionless on the opposite bed. Then, at 2:49 a.m., the camera caught something faint. A shape, barely visible, human-like, sitting upright on the second bed. Not fully formed. More like a thick shadow with edges that trembled. Ethan slammed his laptop shut and jumped back, breathing hard. He ran to Ryan's room. Ryan opened the door instantly, as if he had been expecting it. "What happened?" Ethan shoved his phone forward. "Watch this." Ryan watched silently. When the video ended, he exhaled slowly. "Yeah, it's starting." "Starting?" Ethan snapped. "You mean to tell me this gets worse?" Ryan hesitated before speaking. Every student who lived in 211 said the same thing. If you ignore it, it takes form. Takes form, Ethan echoed. If you stay too long, Ryan whispered, it becomes your roommate. Ethan clenched his jaw. I'm switching rooms. You could try, Ryan said. But rooms are full. They always are. And administration won't move you unless something happens that they can't deny. Great, Ethan muttered. So I'm stuck. Ryan put a hand on his shoulder. Just keep the second bed messy. Don't let it feel empty. Ethan followed the advice, piling junk on the bed. Jackets, notebooks, blankets, even his gym bag. That night, he slept cautiously. At 3:11 a.m., he woke to the sound of slow dragging across the floor. Not harsh, not violent, just a soft slide. Someone dragging their hand along the floor. Ethan held his breath. The dragging sound moved closer to his bed, then stopped, then resumed across the room. It circled his bed twice. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. Morning came painfully slow. By noon, Ethan could barely function. His eyes were red, and his head throbbed from lack of sleep. He skipped class and returned to the dorm early. When he opened the door, he froze. Every single item he had placed on the second bed was now stacked neatly on the desk, arranged by size and type. The bed was made, perfectly, waiting. Ethan felt a cold dread sink deep inside. He grabbed his duffel bag and walked straight to the administration office. The housing office lady smiled politely. How can I help you? I need a room change. She typed on her computer. Name, Ethan Torres. Her expression faltered. She looked through the records again, frowning. That's strange. It says here you were checked in with a roommate already. Ethan blinked. What? No, I'm alone. Her eyes scanned the screen once more. It says 2 students are assigned to room 211. You and someone named. She squinted. This can't be right. The second name entry isn't loading. The system just says, occupant registered by the room itself. Ethan stepped back slowly. What does that mean? She shook her head, confused. I've never seen this before. Let me call. Before she could finish, the overhead hallway speakers screeched with static. A distorted voice came through. Soft, breathing heavy. Close. Ethan, come back. The office lady froze. Did that voice say your name? Ethan didn't answer. He turned and ran. He sprinted across the courtyard toward the dorm. His heart pounded with every step. He didn't know why he was running toward the building instead of away. Maybe fear made his choices irrational. Maybe panic drove him. But when he reached the hallway of the second floor, his feet stopped on their own. The door to room 211 was open. Slightly, invitingly. The hallway around him seemed abandoned. Too quiet, as if everyone else had disappeared. A whisper drifted from the open door. Soft. Familiar. Your roommate is waiting. Ethan felt the air shift behind him. Someone stood there, breathing. He didn't turn around. He stepped inside room 211. The door closed by itself. No one else on the floor ever saw Ethan again after that night. But students who passed by room 211 in the following weeks reported something new. They heard 2 people breathing inside, 2 beds creaking, 2 sets of footsteps pacing quietly after midnight. And sometimes, if they listened closely, one of the voices sounded like Ethan. The other voice? No one could describe it, except to say it didn't sound human.